Welcome to Lesson 4 Worship and the Praise of God's Glory. I'm combining these in the same section because there's only one main Old Testament worship word, and it's Shekah. So I'll start by explaining that one, but the rest of the words are going to be in the New Testament. Shekah means to prostrate in homage to royalty or to God, to bow oneself down. His first occurrence is Genesis 18:2. So he, being Abram, lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing by him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the ground. Now, Shekah shows up 171 times in the Old Testament. Now, 2 of these guys were angels, and one was the pre-incarnate Christ. The two angels were headed towards Sodom and Gomorrah. Job 1:20 says, Then Job arose, tore his robe, and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshiped. And this is right after he heard that he lost all his family and all these disasters. And the only thing he could do is fall to the ground and worship. Now, Job and Genesis are considered very close time-wise, so this may have been an earlier occurrence of worship than Abram, what I just mentioned, but they were both pretty early. Exodus 4:31 says, And the people believed, and when they heard the Lord had visited the children of Israel, that he looked upon their affliction, and then they bowed their heads and worshipped. That's the word Shekah. Psalm 22:27 says, All the ends of the world shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations shall worship before you. Psalm 29:2 says, Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Now remember how we washed off the world at the tabernacle brazen laver in our imaginations? We need to do that every time we enter into praise and worship. We need to go in holy. Not dressed holy or playing holy songs, but just praising holy. Okay, worshiping holy. So that was that's the only Hebrew word. Shekah is the only Hebrew word used for worship in the King James Version, except in Daniel, which is Chaldean. Here's the Greek New Testament words. First one is proskuneo. It means to prostrate oneself in homage to God or higher official, to adore or worship. Its first occurrence is Matthew 2:2. The 3 kings, where we're saying, Where is he that is born the King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. Proskuneo shows up 60 times in the New Testament. Matthew 4:10 and also Luke 4:8 both say Jesus tells Satan to his face, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God. Proskuneo, bow, prostrate oneself to God. John 4:23 says, But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father is seeking such to worship him, and that's proskuneo. Now, while studying this, I took a trip to Walmart because it was a day. I do that every day. While I was there, the verse, the just shall live by faith, was percolating in my spirit. And, well, do you remember Isaiah 42, verse 8, that says, I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory I will not give to another, nor my praise, which is tehillah or arete in Greek, to graven images. Now, I asked God at that time at Walmart for a phrase about tehillah that is more catchy, like the just shall live by faith. And here's what formed in my mind, and this kind of reflects Romans 2:29. It says, True worshipers shall worship with praises from the Father, through the Son, in the Spirit, back to God. This is a cycle. This is a circuit of praise where we submit our mind, will, and emotions to God, which turns loose the rivers of living worship through us. Now, how beautiful is that picture? This is a lifestyle, and I hope that blesses you. Another word for worship in the New Testament is doxa. It's translated a couple of times as worship. Luke 14:10 says, But when you are invited, go and sit down in the lowest places, so that when he who invited you comes, he may say to you, Friend, go up higher. Then you will have glory, or King James's worship, in the presence of those who sit at the table with you. Now this verse reflects Matthew 23:12, which says, and whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. To worship in truth requires a lot of humility and honesty. Another worship word is the word latrio, which means to minister to God, to render religious homage, to serve, and to worship. This carries the sense of a professional minister, okay? Matthew 4:10 is the first occurrence. Then saith Jesus unto him, get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God perskuneo, and him only shalt ye serve. Luke 2 verse 37 says, and this woman was a widow of about 84 years who did not depart from the temple, but served God with fastings and prayers night and day. This was Elizabeth, the widow who served as she waited for Messiah. She was 84 years old when Messiah came in, and she rejoiced to see his day. Revelation 7:15 says, and therefore they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple. He who sits on the throne will dwell among them. And that word there again is serve him is the word letruo. Sabomai is another worship word, means to severe or to revere or adore, devout religious worship. But this is often used in vain, okay? It portrays someone worshiping in vain, let me say that. First mention is Matthew 15:9. Jesus said, but in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. That brought to mind, Romans 1:25 is another example. This is these people who exchanged the truth of God for the lie and worshipped Sabomai and served Latrio, the creature, rather than the creator who is blessed forever. I kind of wonder what is the lie? Maybe it's evolution. Maybe it's Peter's quote, a rat is a pig, is a dog, is a boy. Maybe so. Pagans refuse to believe that humans are a special creation of God, but obviously we are. Our early ancestors drew paintings in their caves. Monkeys still decorate their cage walls or their caves just the same way that they always have. You've probably seen that at a zoo, and you know what they decorate their walls with is not paint. I'm just saying. Mark 7, verse 6 and 7. Again, Jesus speaking. He answered and said to them, well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. Okay, so brothers and sisters, is your heart right with God? Or are you following the commandments of men? I can't pass by this opportunity to ask that question, because praise and worship is more than just jamming for Jesus. If you aren't sold out to Christ, it's vanity. And it's not blessing God or the congregation or you. Okay? Just saying. Another worship word is eusebio, which is to be pious towards God, to worship or to support, respect, or revere parents, leaders, or country. In Greek, the EU prefix means something to be overwhelmed with gratitude. It means to be overwhelmed with gratitude, like respect for the flag, or for instance, or for the office of the president, or for the rule of law. Show some respect to your elders. That's eusebio kind of worship. Its first occurrence is Acts 17:23. This is Apostle Paul speaking. As I passed by and beheld your devotions, I found an altar with this inscription, to the unknown God, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship, eusebio, him I declare unto you. Ignorant worship means that these people were living in fear even of gods they didn't know whether existed or not. Another word, eulogio, means to speak well of, to bless, to thank or invoke a benediction upon, to praise or consecrate with prayer. Matthew 5:44. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. Again, the EU means to be overwhelmed with gratitude. So this applies to like baby dedications, consecrating a church building, anointing and sending out missionaries or college students. This is consecration worship, okay? Even means blessing those who curse you. Acts 3:26. To you first, God, having raised up his servant Jesus, sent him to bless you in turning away every one of you from your iniquity. Romans 12:14 says, bless those who persecute you, bless and curse not. That is a eulogio. Last word is etholothraskaya. It's voluntary, arbitrary, unwarranted piety, that is sanctimony, misdirected or self-willed worship. Colossians 2:23. These things indeed have an appearance of wisdom in self-imposed religion, false humility, and neglect of the body, but are of no value against the indulgence of the flesh. Okay, so to review the worship, praise is mostly celebration and song. Worship is mostly submission and service. Both are vital. And the distinction between these two is not always clear, but it really doesn't need to be, does it? Okay? Shakah, to prostrate in homage, to bow down to royalty of God. Proskuneo, to prostrate oneself in homage. That's the New Testament version of the same word, same concept. Doxa is translated glory most often, but worship sometimes. Latruio, to minister to God like a professional minister. Sobomai, to revere and adore. It's devout religious worship just in general and sometimes not in the right direction. Eusebio is to be pious, to worship or to support, respect or revere your parents, leaders, or country. Eulogio, to speak well of, to bless, to invoke a benediction upon, to consecrate with prayer. And etholothraskaya, voluntary, unwarranted piety, sanctimony, misdirected self-willed worship. Okay, so in our final section then, we're going to change our perspective from what we say and sing to or for God to what he says and sings through us to others. As I said earlier, we worshipers are to speak prophetically to the world around us. We do that with our voices and our instruments. This section will certainly inspire some of you. Even the word inspire comes from the Latin word which means to breathe into, okay? The word was originally used as used of a divine or supernatural being, imparting truth or idea to someone, so to prophesy or to speak into their lives. Okay, that's what inspiration means. Okay, so I'll see you over there in the next. Okay, then to summarize worship, first it starts with bowing down to the Lord, giving our hearts to the Lord. Then our worship grows into service. We start to walk more like Jesus and to be pious towards God. And we start to be more respectful to others. We show our worship of God by being respectful to others. And then to speak well as well, to keep our speech holy. And that's how worship grows.